Oh, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Sales Talk Show brought to you by Metal Plus, clearing the way for a safer environment, always copied, never duplicated. Hey, David, how are you?
I'm good, Billy. How are you, man?
I'm great, man. Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better. Happy to be kicking off episode 8.
Can't believe it, man. Here we are, episode 8. We're hitting it hard.
That's so cool. Today's episode is delivering client success in the after sale.
Hmm.
Lot to unpack there, and we got a great guest. We want to introduce him in a few minutes, but before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the previous show for our listeners that might not have picked this up. The last time we had a great guest on, Patrick Surs from Site One. He really gave us some good examples of how he builds relationships with clients that last a lifetime. He had some great input, some great feedback. His skill set for he grew his personal brand through his ability to be super responsive. He talked about his industry path, how he wasn't even sure he was going to be in the green industry, and then he found a passion for it and was able to grow his opportunities with Site One. Um, he was always he talked a lot about focusing on the clients and the problems they have and being able to offer solutions. As an account rep, as an inside salesperson, he was the one that was answering the phone and helping his clients solve their problems, which I thought that was a big deal. He spoke a lot about being reliable and being dependable. As a salesperson, as a sales professional, you have to be reliable. If you're not, you're not really going to build a brand for yourself. You're not going to be able to sell your products and services. Um, he did talk quite a bit about getting to know the customers outside of what they do day to day in business. Maybe what their personal likes and dislikes are, and be able to build on that a little bit to build a little bit more relationship. David, you and I have said this: people do business with people they like and trust, and Patrick was a big proponent of that. And the last one is, Site One tries to bring as many, industry products to their clients as possible. But what they really focus on is the service, their ability to service that delivery of products, the ability to service their clients with great information and technology, the advances that the show is that their products have taken in the industry, and they're the ones that want to be in the forefront of telling their clients about it. So that was a quick recap. If you didn't catch it, you can go back and watch our shows at Sales Talk Show on LinkedIn and YouTube. You can watch the videos. You can see David and I, or if you want to pick them up when you're on the road or wherever, just search them on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Um, it's a great way to keep up with some information and build your sales resume. So, but David, we've been putting this thing. This is our 8th episode. It's gone back almost a year now since we've been planning to put this on, and we did create a mission on why we want to do this. So share with the listeners our mission and why we actually put this podcast on.
Yeah, and I love that because it every episode reminds us about why we're doing the show, right? And the guests that we have on the show remind us for why we're doing this, right? Our goal, and this was back to our passion, right? When we launched this from the very get go, we said, let's give back. Let's find a way to give back our passion, our enthusiasm, our excitement for the sales industry. And so that's where this comes from, a genuine desire to support the service industry, to raise up the next generation, right? To support through education, real life experiences, and practical learning, right? But also as a way for our suppliers to engage in this, and that's where our guest today is going to play a big role in this. Ryan's got a lot to share as a partner to our organizations and how we deliver success to our clients. How do they do that, and how ultimately is that supporting our business networks? And so very excited for today's episode and the role that we get to play in support, encouraging, mentoring, and coaching the sales industry.
Every business has a sales element to it, right? Every business, whether it's technology, service, our businesses, and the ability for that sales success is what grows companies. So the fact that we're, investing in trying to help the next generation of our the salespeople, is really important because I think we've had some great success in our careers, and being able to share, to give back to the next generation is a lot of fun. So this is
Mhm.
this is really what it's all about.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we've
Well,
got a great partner in the show here, don't we?
yeah, we certainly do. We certainly do. Metal Plus has been a great partner, a great supporter of our
Mm.
show. Let's see what they have. Let's see what they have to tell us in this short video.
Metal Plus, the most profitable choice. The snow removal industry has never been more complex. To be profitable, you must choose the right tool for the right job. The Metal Plus snowplow, combined with its patented live edge technology, has become the #1 choice for snow fighters across North America, Europe, and Asia. The live edge technology allows the cutting edge of the plow to fully contour the surface of the ground. Our unique concepts have allowed snow fighters to be more efficient, reduce maintenance cost, and in turn, create larger profits. In today's market, operating the most versatile piece of equipment, combined with massive salt savings, thanks to the patented live edge technology, are the reasons why Metal Plus is the obvious choice.
Wow, what a great message! Great message, great partner. We appreciate everything Metal Plus does for the show and for our businesses.
Yeah, and such a great setup for our talk today too, right? With Ryan from Anderson Equipment, and just the partnership that Metal Plus is to our organizations, and how they've just really been a tremendous part of Anderson's business. And so I'm going to segue that to you, Billy, and
For sure,
to
yeah. We want to
introduce
welcome
the
our guest.
today's client.
Welcome our guest this morning. Such a hey, there he is. Hey,
Guys,
Ryan.
how are you?
Hey, Ryan Hazelton from Anderson Equipment. Ryan's a good friend, a colleague, trusted confidant. I think in this industry, sales, you can sometimes become a little bit of a lone ranger, right? You're out there kind of doing your own thing. And I always say, there's certain people that you can pick up the phone any time of day and they'll answer. And for me, that's Ryan. We've had a lot of, conversations about business and life in general, and excited to have you on the show today and just hear what you have to say about your experiences in your sales life. Why don't you give the listeners a little introduction to,
Sure.
kind of how you came into the sales world, a little bit about Anderson and your family. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys, first of all, for having me on. Billy and I have been talking about this for quite a while, trying to get this put together where I can join the show. Been a listener, so good to be here. Little backstory. So my sales experience essentially is in the heavy equipment sales world. My great grandfather started in 1931, changing his career from painting church steeples and shifted that over to a dream of selling and fixing like tractors, farm equipment at the time. And fast forward 4 generations later, here I am in the business that he kind of got our family involved in. In 2009, officially, we sold the company that he had started to Anderson Equipment, which is another family-owned company that was started in 1935 down in just outside Pittsburgh. And they've grown their business and acquired some other dealers. So we are the Komatsu dealer for Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York, Western PA, and West Virginia. So we have 19 locations, and we represent the Komatsu brand all throughout the footprint. So in 2009, when we sold, I had yet to be in like an active sale role. I was more of like support staff, kind of behind the scenes when our family owned the company. So my first opportunity on the road started when we sold, and I went over to a territory in southern Maine, into just a really cold territory. We hadn't had a lot of exposure there, and really had to kind of hit the ground and really figure it out. Being very young in the business, I didn't really know what to do or what to do wrong, so I just went out and did what I thought made sense, and called on every mailbox, every office, every job site I could, left cards, drove 300-400 miles a day, and just kind of grinded it out until you build up a customer base, and the rest is kind of history. I had the opportunity in 2015 to move my territory closer to where I live. So now I cover the southern part of New Hampshire. Great clientele here. We had a good existing portfolio of business. And we've kind of grown and changed that as we went, as Anderson has kind of evolved. And so, yeah, here I am today. Got the pleasure of dealing with the guys over at Outdoor Pride. Like Billy said, we get to do a lot together. We communicate on a regular basis, and those guys are just a joy to work with. So happy to kind of be here sharing some of the stuff I've learned on that journey.
Well, that's great. That's a great story. And Anderson is an unbelievable partner, and Ryan and your family, um, they've always stepped up in the challenging times, right? There's always business, creates different challenges, and it's not without challenge in the industry we're in, the snow and ice management business. And Ryan's been a great resource for us, and Anderson's been a great partner. So I appreciate all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Ryan, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today, and so much of what you just shared, right, is such an indicator of the time that it takes to build a business, right? The time and the commitment, right? Some of the things that you shared with Billy and I as we talked about today's show, right, was the persistence, patience, and dedication that it requires to build a client relationship. And so let's talk a bit about that journey. Let's talk a bit about what it takes to build a successful client relationship. And what that process is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that for all of us that are in sales, it involves a lot of patience, like you said, and the world we live in today is all about that instant gratification that society sort of seeks today. But the sales world isn't really that. And when I first went onto the road, that was like that eye opening. I was on the road. I'll never forget it. I was driving up Route 1 in Maine, and I'm looking. I get all these lists and UCC filings and who bought what equipment. It was just such an overwhelming pressure to I need to go sell today, And what I learned quickly was that road wasn't going to be as quick, and it was going to really take a lot of focused effort to find the clients that fit what we had for business and what we had to offer. And through knocking on all those doors and dropping off all those cards, I could kind of weed out what made sense and what didn't make sense and what was really focus in on what we did, and find those clients. And it took about 2.5 years. It was a grind for 2.5 years to really understand my footprint and my territory and come to the other side of that to a point where I really felt like, hey, I get this now. And then it took another probably couple of years of really working that niche that I found and developing it into what I felt like was a really, fruitful and successful territory. So again, like you said, just kind of that grind and patience and meeting people and really analyzing where you're a good fit and where you're not. And it's okay that some places maybe aren't a fit for you right away, and where you're at in your business at that point. There was some accounts I went to that were much bigger than what we could handle. We couldn't service it. So there wasn't really a huge push to that. Maybe there was a different client that we could service, attract to that one, build that up, and then move on from there and grow from there. So, yeah.
It's interesting you say that, Ryan, because I couldn't agree with you more. I think I've been doing it for 30 plus years. And when I first started, there was a lot of that. There was hurry up and get something done today, right? Yeah. And I don't think any salesperson, unless you're selling something that could, transact in, a 24-hour period, every sales situation has to have a time to burn, right? So the younger generation, the new salespeople, or even someone new to sales in general, might not understand that path to success is there's got to be some patience involved. I think that's a great point for the listeners, is to be patient. Build your network, build your pipeline, but have a level of patience to let it marinate a little bit and develop. You know what I mean?
And it's hard. I think it's hard as a young salesman, but as you go, having that patience, the client senses sort of your emotions, So if you kind of go in with that emotion of, they can tell you really want to make this sale, or you go in, I've even heard some salesmen be like, hey, my boss is on me, I really need to make this sale. That approach, they're very turned off by that. Clients don't want that kind of pressure. They don't want to maybe even necessarily be dealing with someone that comes across as desperate. And so I think it's important, especially in that cultivating client process, that you come across as confident and professional, and understand that they're not going to just open their doors and let you get the sale right away. You kind of have to make a connection with them and continue to come back.
Yeah. Oh, great point.
Well, and that's the part that I like, Ryan, of what you shared about nothing worthwhile comes easy. I think that's a very important statement, right? Yep. Nothing worthwhile comes easy. And you talked about, the grit and grind that you need, and you need to have boots on the ground, right? That in order to get through, to what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Absolutely.
and so that's a really big part of it, right? And so thanks for that. It's just so critical because that sets us up, right, for the role that we play in as sales professionals, the role that we play in the aftercare of our clients, right? The aftercare support of working hard and the boots on the ground. Let's talk a bit about the aftercare process in this sale that is related to operations, and how we as sales professionals are part of that sales process, and the pivotal role that we play in the after sale process.
Yeah. So I've transitioning into kind of the after sale. I've lived by a motto, and I've made it very known, like internally with our operations group. And so just quick thing for us, operations, I would consider to be like the service parts, support side of the business. Once someone buys a piece of equipment from us, the operation side is like how we handle that after the sale. So I've always lived by the model that I'll sell the first one, they're going to sell the rest. All that work and legwork I do, kind of grinding it out and meeting and bringing the clients in and getting that sale, that's the first piece. And then I think the more difficult piece is then the rest of the sales, because now you've through that sale process created somewhat of an expectation, through some of your sales presentations or what it might be. And you've probably spoken about service. The question has probably come up, what's your service availability? What's your parts availability? What's it going to be like once I buy a Komatsu, machine from you? So I always tell the shop and the parts guys, I'll sell the first one, you sell the rest, and they've done a great job of it.
Yeah, I know in our world, snow and ice management, David and I both, we make a lot of commitments in the sales side of our business, where we tell a customer, sign this contract and we'll have 2 loaders, 2 skid steers, 2 trucks, and we'll be good to go. But when one of those loaders is not working, our commitment doesn't really stand up, right? We start to look like we didn't quite, hit the mark, and then there'll be questions and concerns. But when you as a professional salesperson, you empower your operations team to understand the value of them making sure we're up and running. I think that's a big message that you've put with your team, and our team understands that. I think our team clearly understands how important the service department of your organization is to our success.
Yeah, absolutely. As an add-on to it, I've sort of found, as salespeople, we have a lot emotionally invested in it. We've worked hard to cultivate that relationship and get to the point of the sale. And now once we're to the operations side, I think as salespeople, it's important that we bridge the gap and sort of bring some emotion into it for our operations side. And I've kind of done that by some of the events we've been able to do with like Outdoor Pride. Have some of my guys come along, have them meet the team, have them, maybe meet someone on site or meet with their maintenance group to plan out the year. Make sure we've communicated back and forth ahead of when you have that 911, hey, my machine's down. So the guys on my side operationally have a little bit of emotion to it, and it's not to manipulate them in any way. It's truly just we want to be the best provider of service we can. And I think anytime you tie emotion to it and a little bit of connection, we're all going to go that extra mile for people that we've met personally, shaking hands, whatever, had beers with, on kind of a recreational fun day we've had or whatever it might be. So,
yeah, no, that's a great point. Love that.
As we continue to talk about this topic of the aftercare support, Ryan, something that you shared was really a critical point, and it had to do with culture and success.
Yeah.
Right. Having a culture of success that the team, everyone understands in the organization, right? A priority of client success. What does that look like? How do we prioritize client success, and what does that look like when we're creating culture? Because that was a great point.
I think just to touch on that, and this is something I learned just obviously generationally through doing this, but when my great-grandfather ran this place, every invoice went out with a little saying on the bottom, and it was service with interest. And that was his motto. Like, he wanted everyone to know that every service that we provide, everything we do it with interest. We care about how we provide the service, because at that time, like, the world was much smaller, so like how we service people affected their livelihood, so he cared about every service that went out and how everything happened. So he sent that out on every invoice. So I just think it's a little bit of just an add-on to how important that culture, and if you operate that way and you have everyone buy into that, the clientele sees and feels that,
It's funny, you've heard the saying, a one tractor town, right? Some of the communities that, were a little bit behind the times, especially when your great grandfather was out there fixing tractors. He might have been fixing that tractor to support and
Right.
to give, a dozen families food on their table, because if they weren't working, they weren't eating.
Yep.
So if you don't care about the service in your industry, service
Yep.
part of your business, it seems really hard to sell more work. It seems like almost like a false promise, right? You're out there selling work, but out the back door, the service and the operation success they don't really see eye to eye. I think you've done a good job of bringing us to that, bringing to us at Outdoor Pride the knowledge that and the trust that we have in you. You're not just the messenger, you're actually involved, right? We've seen you out there in the middle of a snowstorm, coming and checking on the guys, trying to diagnose stuff. So, sales professionals that are involved in their client success have a lot of success themselves.
Yeah, that sort of segues into some of the stuff I think we're going to talk about being like active in the process after the sale with the operations guys,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's where, you shared something too that was really powerful. Talk a bit about goal setting, because I think this was something powerful that you shared regarding defining clear goals, post sale goals that benefit the client and align, with their long-term objectives.
Yeah. So, I mean,
The metrics. Yeah.
I think some of I'm not sure exactly which piece you were talking about, but I was going to go into like after the sale. A lot of times it's easy to make the sale and sort of walk away. And one of the things here that we have tried to do is keep our salespeople active after by working with service and sort of telling them, hey, this is what the expectation is of the customer. This is where the weak points could be. If we break down here, we may fail. So with Outdoor Pride or anyone in the snow industry, that of course is downtime during the course of a storm. So instead of after I make the sale just kind of walking away, I sort of go to the operations guys and say, hey, here's what's going on. We just sold them 12 loaders. Here's where they're going. We need to make sure we have, these parts in stock. We need this many people on call leading up to the storm. If it's a bad storm, anticipate some of the problems and where they're weakest. So what are some of the sites that they only have one loader, and if they go down, we have to get there. Prioritizing kind of the game plan.
Oh, that's a great game. I think any successful, we talk a lot about business related to sports, right? Ryan, you're a football coach. Your kids play sports. I played sports growing up. But in order to win the game, you need a game plan, right? You're going to have an opponent, right? In this case, snow, a 12-inch snowstorm is the opponent, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to figure out how to beat that opponent with the equipment you have. And if that's a great point, knowing where our equipment is and knowing where the stress points are, which would be, one loader only on the site. And I think in any industry, any sales professional that knows their customer's business and knows where their weak spots are and where they can support with solutions, I think it's a great message. Understand what your customer's business is and where you can help them be successful.
Yeah, and that's all things that you learn through the process. So as you're cultivating that client, as you're learning how they are, how they operate and function to get that sale or to help them through that hurdle, you learn a lot. And if you don't share what you've learned with operations, they can't be successful. So you may have heard things through the sale process that, for you guys, on a site, you might have learned, hey, these are some hot buttons that if we don't handle this correctly during the course of a storm, it's going to negatively affect their operations and look poorly on us. So if you can share that information with operations, figure out a plan ahead of time to basically, stay away from, causing them that issue, you guys are way ahead. And because of that, if you can maybe learn something that you can overcome, or maybe learn something that's going to be hard for you because you've learned, your operations. If you know how your operations are, and you hear something might be a problem, you can at least set up with the customer, hey, I see that this is an issue. We may have to come up with another plan for this because we're not really set up for it. And you can talk through it ahead of time, so you're not learning about it being a problem later. If you set that benchmark early and you recognize that, they're going to respect that you noticed it, and it just creates that level of trust that only strengthens things.
Yeah, for sure.
that when we look at client success, those are those active involvements, right? That are when we're there with as a sales team, right? Actively involved with the client, right?
Yep.
It's the sales teams being in the field, right, that make it successful, right? It's the sales teams working alongside with operations. Let's talk a bit about that and the collaborative efforts and the role that we play too in solving our clients' pain points and making sure, right, that we're addressing their specific needs.
Yeah. No, I think like we just talked, I mean, every
Yeah.
client has a pain point. Every client has, spots that are going to create conflict for the relationship. And I think teaming up with operations ahead of time is the only way to really solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, I think you had a comment when we talked earlier that your technicians, your service providers, the guys that go out on the road and are doing those road calls at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
They're the ones putting together the new equipment. And I think we were installing new hydraulic pushers, and there was some valve
Yep.
bodies and some electrical components that they just didn't like. They didn't like that they had seen one or two of them fail last year, and that's a small percentage. That's a 98% success rate. Yet they're saying, I think if this valve was put on this way, it might not get as much moisture, and we won't get that one or two calls that we got last year. I think talk a little bit about that, because I think that's kind of next level
Yeah.
stuff from a technician standpoint.
So, yeah, when you're working and collaborating with operations, like for us, when we're preparing for a winter season, if you create a culture that you want perfection and you want 100% uptime for your clients, they sort of start to buy in, and they don't want to be out there at 2 a.m. if they don't have to. So they remember, and they're like, hey, they came to me and they're like, hey, this was a problem last year. If we do this instead, we may not have to make that call. And every call we can limit having to go out is uptime for the customer. From a corporate standpoint, it's less expense that we may have to incur to keep people running. And it just goes a long way with the client for us to, be able to come with that solution and solve a problem and keep them going. And internally, it's a proud moment too. When you have your guys coming to you with the solutions ahead of time, you've done the right thing culturally to get people on board with that.
That's great.
It's all about building strong client relationships, isn't it? And knowing your client. And something that really stands out to me, Ryan, from the things we've talked about is going beyond the basics, right? Your passion, your desire to move right beyond the basics, understanding your client, what they value, what they face. Let's talk a bit about knowing your client and some of those proactive supports and characteristics that we use every day, right, for building strong client relationships.
Yeah, I think this kind of comes down to just genuinely caring about people and genuinely being interested in what makes them tick and what makes them want to do business with you, what makes them successful, what are their goals. If you just truly listen to people and care to help them, you then can translate that into success for the relationship. So I'll use Outdoor Pride, for example. They're huge on culture. They're great at building the internal culture within Outdoor Pride, and then great with their vendor partners. And they promote that, and they truly, truly mean it. And so we've been able to, with them, really do a ton of bonding stuff. We've done trips to the factory. We've done annual boat days. We've gone to Patriots games. And through that, you just get to know people for people. And I think, like I think one of you said earlier, people buy from people. They're always going to, no matter how much technology and AI and all this other interference that happens in the world. In the end of the day, people buy from people. And so I think if you generally care about people, you just get to know them, and it strengthens the relationship every day. Every year that goes by, and I'll continue to use outdoor as the example, I feel more part of their team every year. And that's just because we work hard together every year to get to know each other a little better and figure out those points that, where can I be better? Where can they be better? It's just a back and forth. And when you get to that point, the sky's the limit on what you can do. So anybody that has a relation, really dive in with a little bit of heart and a little bit of care and really understand what makes that company tick, what makes those people tick, and just find out how you can help them, how you can connect with them a little bit better. And it pays off. If you look at everything about the sale and worrying about the sale more than anything and the commission you're going to make or whatever bonus you might hit, that's not where true success happens. True success happens in building that relation, and the money comes later. That's just a benefit of it.
Ryan, you mentioned the boat day. One thing that comes to mind is my business developers. They're young in their experience. They're in the industry. They know the industry, but they don't have the depth of expertise you have about equipment and whatnot. But just being in that setting, sitting out in the boat in the middle of the lake, just dropping anchor and just cracking an adult beverage, and just all of a sudden you start talking about the difference between a 200 and a 270. And what's the value of that, and where what's the pushing power? And I just watching my business developers listen, and as they go out and estimate new work, I can hear them almost repeating what you said that day on the boat. Oh, this is definitely a 270. We definitely need this because we got to, we can push more. We can do this. And I'm like, that was you feeding them information in a non-business setting. It was more of a social setting, but they were still learning, and they were using that information to grow their sales skills. I saw it firsthand. So that's cool. And I think that's what you're talking about is, push the envelope to get to know your client a little bit better than just, can I come to the office, have a coffee and talk about what you need, go outside. And a good friend of mine said one time, he said, there's not a lot of traffic on the extra mile, and I'm like, that's kind of resonated with me a little bit. Cause you think about it, like, organizing the boat day, taking a trip to the plant, going to a Pats game. Those are all things that take a little extra work. But in the end, it's not that hard,
I try and focus my mind to be that I try and spend very little time selling. Like, my job is really to gather information, provide solutions. And if I've done my job correctly, and I say that meaning that I've just managed the relationship correctly, when it comes down to a purchase scenario, there's really not a lot of selling to be had, because I've already gathered information, provided information, kind of suggested solutions. And in the end, they're just more telling me, hey, I need to buy this excavator or this loader or whatever that we've been talking about for 6 or 8 months. That's, if I've done that successfully, I've done my job.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
You know what? You strike a chord right with that, because that's all about what you've shared, right? About knowing your client and what matters to them, right? The challenges that they face, right? Being able to anticipate their needs, right? And being consistent. It really is all about then setting up a relationship as opposed to a transaction, right? You're able to really, like you said, it's not about the sale. If it's about the sale, that's a transaction. And so let's talk a bit about the avoidance of that, right? How do we avoid a transactional versus relationship? I mean, you hit on that just now, even when you shared that. And it was something that you mentioned too, Ryan, was that it comes down to honest communication, right? Yeah. When you're really getting in tune with your client, you're being honest with them. Let's talk a bit about that, right? And just upfront communication and how it prevents misunderstandings.
Yeah, I think, again, it comes back to that mindset of what you're in it for. What are you in this for, the short-term gain or the long-term? And if you're in it for the short-term gain, that becomes very transactional. And sometimes you don't make the right decisions when you're thinking transactionally. You may not make the right suggestion to the customer. You may skip over, instead of saying hey, the easy thing might be in the situation, I'll buy the WA200 because you have a price advantage and that's cheaper and they'll just take it. Where the harder thing to do would be you know what? It's another $25,000 or $30,000, but this is what you should do, and here's why. If you have built an honest relationship with somebody and there's a level of trust there, they're going to do that. They're going to trust that, and it's the right decision versus selling them maybe the wrong thing that they're not happy with later. And long term, you don't get that next sale. They start to figure out that maybe that wasn't the right decision. So there's that. There's when they come to you with a problem and you want to give them the best solution, and you want to just say, yes, we'll be there tonight, Billy, and we're going to get that loader running. And when maybe the reality is that can't happen. Maybe the reality is that fix cannot happen in the field, or it can't happen in the middle of a storm, or it's a 4-hour drive and we won't be there till morning anyway. So let's wait till light and let's figure it out. And those are hard conversations to have, because you don't want to tell the customer no, but they'll also respect that if the answer is truly no, they'll come up with another solution. Everyone has a plan in place, and they'll come up with they'll bring a loader, they'll bring a truck, they'll get by if they have to. Like, if that's the end all, just be honest with them, and they will figure out the plan, But if you're not honest with them and you try and lie to them and tell them you'll be there, and then you don't show up and they didn't come up with another plan, now they're upset.
That's a problem. Yeah. I think the never sacrifice your integrity. And I think that's a lot about what you're saying is right. You can never buy your integrity back. If you telling someone that you can do something and then all of a sudden you can't, that's going to be a mark, right? It's going to be a mark against your brand. Everybody has their own personal brand. As a salesperson, you have to represent your company, but you also have to represent yourself. You have to look in the mirror. And I think if you're out there, wheeling and dealing and winging it, it'll catch you. It'll catch up to you. And it'll be a lot of transactional sales. And I think those sales are not very sustainable, right? They might be one and done. You might be able to transact with somebody that is a transactional person. That's the other thing. You can kind of see that person. If they're asking you for a quick deal, they're not willing to wait and they're anxious and they're pushing it. And they're like, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to do business with this person. I think you said earlier, sometimes customers aren't always the right fit,
I think there's another piece to this that's important to bring up. So we're sort of been talking about transactional, business that we don't want to be involved in with our clients, but there's another piece of it internally. And if your operations guys start to think that the sales group is transactional and they're only looking at the growth or the sale or whatever, they may take offense to that, and they might think of the sales group as sort of this like enemy, like they're just going to make their life more miserable, So I think it's important that we also think about that, like not being transactional internally as well. You need to continue to work with that team and just keep the communication lines open. Like, hey, this is our growth opportunity for you. This is some sale opportunity we have. Keep them in the know throughout the process. Don't just dump on them like, hey, we just sold outdoor 12 loaders and you guys got to have them done by this day. Involve them in the whole process. So they're positive about it, and negative, And again, I think transactional salesmen or, salespeople would just drop that order in and not talk to them about it, But where you have that line of communication open for 6 months ahead of time, they're prepared for it mentally, and then they're not going to look at it negative.
Love it. Great thoughts.
Yeah, I like that point, and you're talking, and again, that all comes back to culture, right? And it comes down to winning as a team. I really like that, what you just pointed out. And, when we look at what are we ultimately trying to create at the end of the day, right? We're trying to create client success. That's all about empowering the client, empowering our teams, right? And empowering our clients. And I think, that's a kind of almost a wrap up of what is the ultimate of all of this, right? At the end of the day, how do we empower our clients successfully? Let's talk a bit about how you do that, even with Outdoor Pride, right? You have a very neat process, and something that you do really well, Ryan, and that you do at Anderson, is to sit down and really understand the client's needs. Let's talk a bit about what you do and how you are empowering your clients even in the process.
Yeah, so I think with certain clients, you reach a point where early on in the sale process, the flow of information is a little bit harder to kind of like keep moving when that relationship isn't as evolved. When you reach a certain level in a relationship with a client, and like Outdoor, the information flows very easily back and forth. And with that easier flow of information, I've found that it's important to understand where the client wants to go. What are their goals? What are their objectives? Where do we fit into that? And so Mark and I have really spent a lot of time at strategic points in the year, really analyzing, the need for equipment. Is what we're doing working? Is the finance process we're using appropriate? What's the value of the fleet currently? Is there any pieces that should shuffle out? And giving suggestions as to, hey, if you move these out now and get new pieces in, you're going to save on downtime. You're going to gain a little equity on what you sell off. And those opportunities, like I said, it's important to impress upon. That's not every client. Not every client's gonna let you sit down and really have those in-depth conversations. You may not get that opportunity. But if you work through kind of that after the sale process and you build that trust and they know you're not transactional and that you're really trying to help, you get to that point where those conversations happen. And so
Mm.
I think the recent success in the last couple of years that we've had in sales, specifically to outdoor, have been that planning process, have been those meetings we've had, that have really given good information to both sides. And so for us, I know what outdoor is planning on doing. I know the growth plan. I know what that means for loaders. So I can order loaders ahead of time. So for example, this year, we knew in March what they wanted for loaders. We were able to order them all with a specific spec for outdoor versus waiting till October and scrambling around and taking what we could get. And again, so that's successful for both sides. That's great for us for planning inventory, and that's great for outdoor to get the product they need. And that really works in any client scenario. You know, I'm sure, Billy, I'm sure you have plenty of scenarios where you've built up relations with property managers or certain people that you have some of those conversations with. They might know of new properties coming online, and you kind of get the early in on some of that. You know, it can relate to any business, really. It's just developing that relation, so that flow of information is a two-way street.
I was just going to say that's a great example, and it happens to us a lot. I think the one thing that sales professionals, get a little bit antsy on is asking customers about their budget. Right?
Yeah.
There's no harm in asking. I mean, they might not be forthcoming, but they might be forthcoming. It might help everybody, win the business and grow the partnership and offer the best amount of value. If there's a lot of trust there, if you're telling me that it's a $50,000 job, I'm not going to charge you $50,000 if it's only costing me $30,000. If I have a trust-based relationship, I'm going to work with you to give you the most value you can, so we can grow that partnership for more properties or more business. So I think asking and talking about budget numbers is sometimes, feels like it's taboo for salespeople, but I think it's a great conversation piece. You'll find out quickly whether they want to share it with you or not, but it's just an option,
Absolutely. And if you don't ask, you're never going to know. So
True. So true.
Well, and you talk about proactive support, Ryan, things that we know when it relates to information, right? When it comes to problem solving with the client, right? One thing that you shared with us too, right, is the significance when you have that relationship, that you're also being proactive in letting the client know if there's things you need to know, right?
Yeah.
Letting your customer know if there's issues with manufacturing, if there's new product innovations that they need to know about, or things that that would help them run their businesses better, right?
absolutely.
I mean, that's where you play a powerful role.
Yep. Yeah. As salespeople, you like on the equipment side, we see it before they do. We know what's coming. We know where the hurdles are going to be on the equipment side, whether it be delivery, spec configuration, new product, whatever it might be. We're seeing that before they are. So it's kind of our job to bring that into the conversation if it's a valid thing for the client.
Yeah, I like that. I like the information. It takes a lot for us to go find that information. I think, Ryan, we were talking about utilization of our equipment, how much our equipment was being utilized, and you within an hour gave me an hour's report on every machine that we had under contract, and we were able to see some of the machines only work like 40 hours over the course of the winter. I'm like, whoa, that machine could do a little bit more work. So being able to use the technology, being able to share the information like you're able to do, and being the an extension of our team in a way, right? So we're helping bring more business in, and to be able to utilize that loader, if it's only been utilized 50% capacity, we can be more competitive on that job down the street and win that business and not have to purchase another piece of equipment. So that's a great value to the partnership for sure.
Absolutely.
Ryan and Billy, this has been a great episode. It's been a great time together. Ryan, incredible insights for our listeners today. Maybe just a quick recap on, and just kind of final closing remarks or thoughts on the relationship that goes beyond the sale. What would you want to recap this with?
Yeah, I think the key is to remember that like we kind of talked at the beginning, it's a long journey, and it's going to have a lot of turns in the road, and it's important that you kind of approach it with that honest mindset, non-transactional. Understand that throughout the time in a relation, something may happen that kind of interrupts it. And if you haven't built a good foundation around the relationship, it may not withstand the interruption. And that could be anything. Property manager leaving and moving on to another place. If you've only dealt with that one person, what's going to happen when that person leaves? You got no one else to lean on. So as you build the relation, build the foundation, build the connections, both internally, with our operations people, and externally with the customer. I think that's kind of paramount. Operating in an honest mentality, like Billy said. Don't give up your integrity. Like that's what you have.
It's
I
true.
think all these things are
Great.
key. And just kind of keep grinding. Be patient.
Yeah.
Instant gratification isn't it. Don't worry about the money you're going to make. Just maintain the relation. The money's going to come.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I love it.
I like
I
that.
love it. Start somewhere. Start somewhere, right, Ryan? Did you start with a broom
Yeah.
in your hand when you started working with your grandfather? Absolutely.
I did. I started with a broom. I washed machines. I put away parts. I was very
Wow.
blessed to learn a lot from being in a family business. It was
Wow.
great for my career. You value what goes on operationally much more when you've done it.
That's great.
It didn't just happen. It didn't just happen overnight that you got to where you are today and what you're doing.
No, I had a lot of good teachers.
A lot of help.
It's pretty special, man. I love the two words that you just said: relation, foundation.
Yeah.
Right, the relationships, right? That's established the foundations. Relation, foundation.
Yep.
So good, so good,
Awesome.
man. Thanks for being on the show today. You guys,
Thank
you
you
guys
guys
have
for
a lot
having
more
me.
to. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have a lot more to chat about after. And yeah,
Yeah, Ryan.
You
Thanks
enjoy.
so much for being on. I mean, you're a true friend. You're a true and a colleague in our industry that I look to learn from. As long as I've been doing it, I pick up the phone and call you, and I learn something new every time we talk. So thanks for being there. Thanks for being a great partner of ours. Thanks for
Likewise,
helping us
buddy.
grow our business. It's just it's a lot of fun. It's this industry is a little bit of a grind, but when you can do it with people like yourself and Anderson and the Anderson family and your family, it makes it a little bit more fun. So thanks for being here today, and thanks for being a great friend.
People like you guys make it a lot of fun. I don't look at it like I go to work every day. I go to work and see my friends, basically.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I love it. I love it.
Thanks
Thanks
guys.
again, Ryan. We'll see you soon.
We appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it.
All the best. Much success. Oh, Billy, that's great stuff, man.
Yeah, he was awesome. He just he's exactly who what you just heard. He is exactly that person. Just a true, genuine salesperson with a lot to offer. He's a very quiet salesperson. He just kind of gets stuff done. The old GSD model. And while he's doing it with some strategic steps. And you heard a bunch of them there. It's awesome.
Well, he said some key words at the end there. You are my friend. You're my friend, right? And he sees his clients as friends. That is so critical, right? That is, and that's where the success is. That's where the quiet success is. People often wonder why are these guys so successful? Well, because they're not treating the client like a client; they're treating the client like a friend, and
Correct.
and really looking after him. I love that. So that's amazing.
Yeah,
Huge shout out to Ryan.
Yeah,
team at Anderson.
Yeah, no, it's great guest. And we're gonna wrap up the show with a little bit of an event that we hosted. Cymer and Outdoor Pride put on an event about a month or so ago now. It was called Behind the Curtain, and I think we got a quick video here that kind of details a little bit of what went on that day, and then we can wrap things up.
Today we hosted with Cymar 50 companies from around the country to an event called Behind the Curtain. We spent the day sharing a bunch of information that how we operate our snow and ice business. It just makes us feel appreciated that people want to make the trip to come down and see how we run our business.
For people that travel from all over the country to come see us here in New England is just a big testament to our partners at Cyma and the network that they have, but additionally the commitment that these companies have to our industry and the professionalism and wanting to get better. Taking the time to work on yourself and work on your business and learn from your peers in a great environment is something we are proud to host, something we're happy to be a part of, and something we're always going to continue to do for our industry.
Wow, what a day. What a day. A couple days, David. You and Paul came up to Boston and come up to see us. So it's great to host you guys. Great to have you around. What did you think of the event?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, what an event. What an amazing way to connect with your team members, to get an inside look at things, and just have an opportunity for open sharing, open learning, right? No walls, right? Everything was just fair game, right? There was no question that couldn't be asked. and there was no information that wasn't shared. It was really special, really engaging time, and just a huge shout out to you and your team and at Outdoor Pride for putting that on. It was a lot of work to get ready for that day, and you guys did a bang up job. It was awesome.
Yeah, and it's great to have an organization like CIMA behind us. That was all facilitated through CIMA. CIMA reached out to us, in the summertime and said, "Would you be willing to host?" And we obviously stepped up because CIMA's good to everybody that participates in being part of their organization, and we see the benefit. And then obviously here at the Sales Talk Show, CIMA is a great partner of ours, and they've supported us and what we're doing here. And we couldn't be happier with the partnership. And that day was just special. It was great day for our team, great day for the people that attended. I met some people that I compete with every day, and we looked at each other and we shook hands and we said, it's mano y mano, let the best man win. And we weren't afraid to share what we were doing well, because I think I said it before, the tide rises all boats, and it was a really, really fun day. So
that's right. Iron sharpens iron. I agree.
There you go.
That's right. That's the way it goes. We've got great partners in this show. I'm great. We're grateful for CIMA. We're grateful for Landscape Ontario as well, and the role that they're playing with this show as an alliance partner. And Congress is coming up in January. Huge. It's Canada's largest landscape and snow trade show coming up in January too. So exciting times ahead for the industry in January to get together and learn.
I hope to make it up for that. If the weather cooperates, I'll sneak in there and check it out, because I've heard great things about it.
It's a great show. Don't miss it. Listen, I think this is a wrap. I think, wow, look at this, episode 8. Here we are.
That's it. I would say, as we heard from some great guests today, and you and I have had amazing conversations over the last, 10 months, putting the show on and having some conversations about how to be successful. I love the idea that we're doing this and helping the next generation. But, if you're going to go sell something, have some fun doing it.
Amen.